Hey guys, this is Caesar with Inspire Movement. So very glad that you could join us for another segment of Word of the Day. As you can see, I'm holding this beautiful portrait right in front of me here. This is a special someone that I met this past weekend during the Thanksgiving holiday. I hope that all of you had an amazing Thanksgiving holiday, by the way. I know that I did with my family, and we're so very glad to be back here in Orlando. But again, going back to Miss Gail, her name is Miss Gail Pullis. Please look her up at Art by Gail on Instagram. She has a ton of different artwork that she's featuring there, and it's just simply amazing. I'm sure she can do a beautiful portrait for you as well. So with that, we're going to explore today's word. Today's word is sex. So very controversial word to some extent, but we're going to try to dive in and share some reflections with you on that word. So generally when you think of sex, you think of, when it comes between people or two people, you think of sexual activity, specifically sexual intercourse. When we think of sex as well, we think of the categorization between, say, males and females, which is the division typically used for humans based on their reproductive functions. Today we're going to be focusing on the sexual activity component or context of the word. So when we think of a healthy, intimate relationship, some of the benefits thereof from a health perspective. Well, for one, they help you with your immune system, right? So they give you an immune system boost. Research studies have found that when two responsible adults are engaged in sexual activity, they have a lot more of what the body needs in order to defend itself against viruses and germs. It's also been proven that there's a reduction in blood pressure. There's also a decrease in the risk to heart disease for folks that are sexually active. Again, responsible adults engaged in sexual activity. For men, there's a less propensity for things like prostate cancer. And also for women, it increases or helps with bladder control. It helps with sleep, and it also reduces your levels of stress. So there's a ton of benefits for responsible adults to be benefiting from when they're engaged in sexual activity. For some of us that are parents and parents of teenagers, let's say, navigating those conversations can be very, very tough for obvious reasons. Some of the highlights that we should try to seep into our conversation without lecturing, because they're not going to be very receptive to our lecturing, whether it be a male or a female. They're going to probably want to tune us out when it comes to this specific subject. But you at least want to hit on unplanned pregnancies, the issue with sexually transmitted diseases, as well as things like consent and avoiding something like date violence or dating violence. So talk about contraceptives, talk about birth control if you have a female or a daughter. Those things are very critical, and also about how it is to be responsible by using some form of contraception to avoid things like sexually transmitted diseases or the transmissions thereof. So those are things definitely that we should be on the lookout for when we're engaging in those conversations with our children or our young adults. When it comes to, again, healthy, intimate relationships, some of the things to think about include not focusing on relationships that are just solely looking at a sexual agenda. Making sure that we're not in exploitative type of relationships where we're being used just for that act. But more so, we're with a special someone that values us as a human being and engenders a sense of trust. We feel safe with, and they themselves are responsible as are we with them. So those are things, ingredients that can definitely be very helpful if you're going to be engaged in sexual activity with someone. So when we compare, say, two types of relationships, romantic relationships versus purely sexual relationships, what are some of the highlights? Well, for one of the things to consider is that you get a dopamine and a testosterone boost when you're in a romantic relationship versus just a purely sexual one. So you feel good. Those are the feel-good chemicals, right? So the dopamine and testosterone boost is an obvious a highlight of being in a romantic relationship. Also, your life expectancy for both males and females, when you find yourself in that loving, healthy, intimate relationship, you tend to live longer. Your finances are positively affected. Your household makes more money, believe it or not, when you find yourself in a loving, respectful relationship versus just philandering around, looking for the next one-night stand. It's proven. You can look it up if you want to, but it's actually proven. Things, again, like we talked about previously, the reduction in blood pressure, the propensity for having less risks with heart disease. You also have less issues with mental health issues as you're happier, you have long-term happiness. There's an incredible amount of benefits to being in that long-term romantic relationship versus purely seeking one-night stands and philandering, looking for that next sort of night of passion, if you will. As I reflect personally on sex, I think of just the negative brush with which it's so broadly painted with. So when you think typically of sex, oftentimes it can be thought of as something dirty or naughty, or that like there's something wrong with the word even. Well, as we know, there's 7 billion people on Earth, right? So we're, if anything, incredibly populated and exponentially growing. So we're having a lot of sex. So why is it so negative? What is it something that's even to this day, fiscal year 2020, it seems to be an awkward conversation to have, particularly with young adults? I'm not really sure what the answers are, but it shouldn't be taboo because of all the reasons that we mentioned above. If it's done responsibly and with somebody that cares and loves for us, then it shouldn't be something construed negatively. I think one of the caveats to consider is issues like pornography, which maybe just highlight one aspect of the act itself, but sometimes that can be construed maybe more negatively than positively. So I think it's very important for us to try to look for, a healthy way in which to approach being sexually engaged with someone. When we try to collect partners as we collect commodities, as I mentioned before, that's a problem because it's going into how we don't really treat our own bodies in a sacred, respectful way, nor are we expecting that other person, that partner that we're with, to do the same or treat us that way. So we don't necessarily feel that very special, nor treat them with any sense of them being special because of the same reasons. So I think as we explore the word sex and engage in it as responsible adults, let's look for those genuine, intimate relationships that we can prosper and grow from and reap all those great benefits that I previously mentioned about, which are in fact proven to be part of deep, romantic, respectful relationships with a significant other. So with that, I hope that you guys find these reflections useful. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of the week, and again, sync with us, whether it be through this very Instagram feature or on Facebook. Look for us on our YouTube channels that we continue putting more relevant content for you to enjoy, and we just look for ways to connect with you. And again, have a blessed week, and I look forward to seeing you next week.